Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Heather Frierson, and I'm your host of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have two guests with me, Rob Auchincloss and Jonathan Appel. And they are the founders or CEO and Chief Tech Officer of Eden. And I cannot wait for you to share your story. So if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe so you can get a notification every time a new show drops just like this one. Well, guys, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you for having us, Heather. It's an honor to be here and tell you a little bit about what we're doing. We think your listeners will be excited because we have a real solution that people have been looking for a very long time.
Well, I can't wait to hear and for everyone to listen as well. So, why don't you just go ahead and give us a brief background about Eden, your business, and about what you guys do?
Sure. For sake of time, I'm going to compress the last 3 decades into just a quick little blurb. But my family has been working on this technology for the better part of 27 years. It's essentially a reverse engineering of Mother Nature, where we figured out the correct temperatures and parameters that carbon material needs to be processed to be able to break it down to the molecular level, right? So we all know that compounds are made of different atoms and molecules, right? Sugar is C6H12O6, right? We all remember that from high school chemistry. Stands for 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. Well, what our system is able to do, it's able to break the bonds between the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen into creating those structures as their base compounds. So we're able to take basically all carbon-based material, whether it's waste or not, right? You can do garbage or you can do a clean feedstock, whatever you want. But we're able to convert that back into its base units, which are chains of carbon atoms, right? Which we call hydrocarbons, right? Oil, right? Which is just a carbon molecule surrounded by hydrogen molecules, as well as different types of fertilizers. We produce a carbon-based fertilizer, which most people call biochar, and we also create a liquid fertilizer. So we're able to essentially take this process that we've been developing and copy what Mother Earth does to create oil, except we've improved on her process, able to create clean burning fuels, not like the traditional hydrocarbons that come out of the ground that are dirty and have a lot of pollutants in them. We create clean carbon and hydrogen based fuels. As well as fertilizers. So there's no waste and there's no byproduct. So it's a complete circular system, taking your garbage and turning it into energy that you can then use. So it's basically that's the last 30 years in a nutshell. A lot of science, a lot of advancing, a lot of great success, but we've had some unfortunate setbacks. And if people are interested in the setbacks, they can look a little bit at some of the other things that we've done where we dig into that a little bit more. But that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Okay, that's a lot of information and it's really cool. And I can tell that you're a smart guy for sure. But a lot of us don't remember high school science.
Sure.
So for those of us, not me, I remember everything that you just said, and it was taught in school. What does it mean for the listeners? What you're doing, how does that benefit or
Sure.
help us?
So basically, what we've created is a truly regenerative way of taking waste products and turning them back into a clean regenerative use, right? Whether that's energy, whether that's fertilizers, or water, which is one of the products that we produce, right? Some people call it a byproduct, but water is one of the most valuable commodities on the planet. Everybody, especially where you guys are in Leander, you know how valuable water is, especially
Mhm.
when there isn't much falling out of the sky. Um, so there's a lot of great uses for that for the client. Now, our clients are not going to be your typical run-of-the-mill mom and pop grocery store, right? We're going to be servicing bigger clients that are producing volumes of waste that make purchasing one of these pieces of equipment viable because our smallest system processes 2 tons a day, and it's a
Oh
$2
my
million
gosh.
unit, right? But that will pay itself back very quickly. Now, people that we're looking to target are clients who are producing a significant amount of organic waste, 20, 30 plus tons a day, all the way up into the thousands of tons a day, to take their waste that they're producing, instead of paying somebody to come and pick it up and haul it off, put a piece of our equipment on site. You're now going to process all of your waste, including your sludge, right? The toilet water, everything you flush down the toilet, everything that goes in your company's garbages, any materials you're processing, from plastics to foods to everything in between, right? Plastic is a feedstock, food waste is a feedstock, dead animals are feedstocks, rubber and tires are feedstocks, used oils, paints, it's all carbon, right? Everything's made of carbon. So this is a carbon recycling technology. So
Wow.
all the waste that a company produces, instead of putting it in a dumpster to pay someone to take it off, you now convert that into energy on site via our system, which is not just economically positive, it actually heals the environment as you're doing it, because there are no emissions, there's no waste, there's no byproducts, everything comes out in a clean regenerative use. So a company now can create all their own energy on site from the stuff that they were paying to have somebody take away. So they're gaining benefit on the bottom line from the waste disposal costs, as well as the electricity requirements that their company now needs that they no longer have to purchase.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the life cycle here, if I'm understanding it correctly, is a large corporation what usually throws away a ton of stuff, and then we know where all that goes, which is not good. They then instead giving it away to the trash man, recycle it right there with your system, your product, so that then when it comes out, it's reusable for different
Yep.
needs, correct?
So if you're processing garbage, you're going to have five products. There's going to be
Mhm.
five things that are going to come off the system. The first is going to be a natural gas. It's going to be the cleanest burning hydrocarbon on the planet, period. It's just carbon and hydrogen. Next, you're going to have a liquid fuel oil, which we call regenerative fuel oil. This is a straight chain carbon chain hydrocarbon, right? So this is the cleanest liquid fuel that you can possibly produce, right? To make this out of what they get out of the ground, it would take a tremendous amount of refining, and it's how it comes out of our system. So you now have this secondary fuel that you can either burn in a boiler and fire a steam turbine, or you can fractionate it out into gasoline and kerosene and diesel, whatever you do with it. But you can also make energy through that. Um, Hold on. You can also make energy through that. Sorry, I was getting a call. And then you have a liquid fertilizer, which is going to be a nitrogen, phosphorus, manganese superfood, right? You have a biochar, and you have your gray water. Now, if you're like where you guys are in Texas, that gray water will meet all the requirements to use for irrigation. Or if you were downtown Austin, it'll meet all the requirements needed for a city discharge, right? So it's not a
Mhm.
byproduct. You can just put it right into the sewer, and you might have to pay a water meter, right? But that's about it. You just be just paying a cost for disposal per gallon. But everything else is a product. Now, we have a buyback program where if a client is producing the fertilizers and they say they don't want to go through the selling, we're going to buy it back from them at wholesale. So there's that option as well. But this gives a complete closed loop system for any business that's producing over 10 tons of waste, right? If you're at 10 tons plus per day, then this makes complete sense. Under
Mhm.
10 tons, we can definitely work with it with our smaller units, but it's not going to be the same economic benefits of, say, a 30 ton per day system,
Mhm.
which in the right locations, and right location is high disposal costs, high electricity costs, right? Things of that nature. I mean, on a 30 ton per day system, you could be talking a payback of less than a year on a system that could be over $15 million.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing. Okay, so you said about 30 years ago. And so what's running through my head is 30 years ago, keep Austin green, if you will, and save our planet wasn't really a thing.
Yep.
So how 30 years ago, it sounds like you were one of the forerunners in this. How did this come about when
Sure.
it really wasn't part of the conversation?
So my father was tasked by some friends of his at looking at certain technologies to build a business from. They were looking, and this was the mid 90s, they were looking at different ways of making waste from energy. And my father was just a serial entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
Well, didn't consider himself a scientist back then, but I think he definitely has earned that badge by this point.
I think so.
Um, He was looking at all these different technologies from the business point of view, right? Pyrolysis, gasification, incineration, and they all were energy inefficient, meaning they required much more energy than they were producing.
Mm.
They produced toxic byproducts, and they were really difficult to build and maintain, right? Not easy pieces of equipment to operate. And he said, look, you can't build a business on these. They're not economically viable, no matter how much incentives or credits or whatever it is you throw at it. So one of his friends asked him to figure it out, and he met a few people, and they started working on it. And things went in great. There was a cool company back then called Changing World Technologies. It was the one my father started. They tried to go public in 2008, and the IPO released right before the market crash. So that was just
Oh,
a disaster.
yeah, bad year.
And then 2012 saw the biofuel market in the US completely collapse. So it caused our company to restructure and move some things around. I ended up in Istanbul. I lived in Turkey for 5 years, advancing the technology further there. Things went great there until a failed coup d'etat imploded the country. So it was just one of these setbacks after setbacks, but it was always socioeconomic issues that disrupted the growth of the business, never the technology. The technology always performed, always did wonderfully. And it was just some setbacks that caused us to have this opportunity to restart with all this years of technological advancement under our belt. The fact that we now have new IP under Eden to protect the advancements of the technology. So things are really getting exciting.
Well, that brings us to the tech part you mentioned, and that's where Rob comes in. Give us a little bit of background about that. Like, what is the tech? And I love how you said, you know, or how you said, Jonathan, you had setbacks that were unavoidable, socioeconomic things that happen in the world, but then technology advances that we have today have really helped you grow. So tell us about that.
Well,
Yeah.
we've advanced, Rob. I was just going to say I'm going to pass it over to Rob, but we've advanced this technology tremendously. But that's a question better suited for Rob, and the reason why he's leading our technology side.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you. It, in the last 27 years since Jonathan's dad, his name is Brian Appel, went through and spent time to create this technology, there have been many different iterations of the technology over time, right? The current version of the technology that we're on, I think would be safe to say we're on V5 or 6. Jonathan, would you agree with me on terms of like the whole
Potentially even
iterative
more,
cycles?
but
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, in terms of a whole large generational changes. And so, without spoiling any, privileged information, the current system works through a series of processes that take a given sample. So say on a very large scale system, like a multiple thousand tons per day system, each batch, so to speak, going through the system is going to be significantly large. But in our smaller 2 ton per day system, right, each batch moving through the system will be smaller. It'll be in the, maybe 150 pound range, depending on the density of the waste that you're processing, right? And so the beauty of the Eden system is that it can take waste in a wet mix stream, right? So most existing incineration, pyrolysis, anything that claims to be waste to energy, which is really they're not. They're just most of the time burning something and creating a lot of nasty byproducts to heat a tube or a system with water to run a steam generator, but in the process, they're making tons of nasty byproducts, tons of awful emissions,
Mm.
and it's not very efficient, right? And so for our system, because we can take that wet mix stream, unlike the other systems that require some kind of handling or pre-modification, maybe there needs to be a certain level of humidity, a certain temperature, a certain mixture. Our system just kind of consumes it all up. And so with the modern technology, let's just call it V7 that we're on right now. One thing that we realize is very important is that, we understand at a scientific level, at an academic level, even, we have papers co-published by MIT, by Lehigh, by the Navy, by New York Department of
Wow.
State that basically validate this technology. So we're not out here trying to prove to anyone that it works. We know it works, right?
Mhm.
What we're here to do is make it better, right? And so one of my big initiatives in this kind of V7, so to speak, that we're on is that, in any system, right? It doesn't matter if it's a jet engine or a rocket ship or a car, right? There's going to be different ideal operating parameters based on the environment, based on what you're running, based on the situation, right? And so it really made sense early on for us to start thinking deeply about this idea that we truly want our customers and end users to be able to use the system as they please. So if one day someone wants to process tires and sewage, and the next day they're processing hazardous hospital waste and Roundup, maybe the next day they're processing, PFAS infected soil, maybe they're processing, it could be anything. And so obviously our system will very efficiently process these things, but there are different levels of efficiency at a farther nuanced level depending on what you're processing. So I'm currently working with my team on what we've dubbed ATOM, which is the Autonomous Decentralized Optimization Matrix. And essentially what it does is a machine learning model that can understand the different types of materials coming through the system and optimize each individual set point using all the parameters that we have at our availability to make sure it runs as efficiently as possible. And also this system can kind of also automate the process as well. So our goal isn't to take the human out of the process. There are still a lot of steps that we believe that, aren't replaceable by AI as everyone's trying to claim that they are. But there are a lot of things that do make sense that machines should be running, right? In terms of helping the materials move through our process from stage to stage, making sure that they're all operating at the right set temperatures and pressures, and also making sure that it's safe, right? Most of these existing systems are not inherently safe. They're high pressure, they're high temperature, they're explosion risk, they're flame risk, they're fire risk, they're contamination risk, they're toxicity risk, they're emission risk. Like I could go on all day. But our system, but this might be hard to believe for anyone still listening that has a scientific background, is from an industrial standpoint, we operate at low pressure and low temperature, right? So our factor of safety is higher than one you'd have setting on a commercial airliner, right? And we all know how safe those are. So we are really setting out to take this technology that's been evolving and growing over the years and make it into the most efficient, the safest, the highest functioning, most easily accessible technology available that can be used by anyone. And that's our goal. And eventually our goal is to make it accessible to a point where, we're not just talking about countries or cities, we're talking about neighborhoods. We're talking about space stations, like smaller things. So
And,
This is
and Heather,
fascinating.
just to add one point in there that Rob missed, the name of the software is Atom.
I did
So
hear that. I thought that you just
Atom
wanted
is
me to miss
running
that.
the Atom is running the Eden systems.
yeah.
I kind of heard that and I didn't know if I was supposed to, but I did put
You
that
heard right.
connection
Yeah.
together that Adam's the first and we're in Eden. And so all of this is fascinating to me. And one of my questions that I thought as you were talking, Rob, that you kind of answered at the end is that, first of all, it sounds like y'all are the forerunner in so much right now. And so my question was, how can it help people every day? And you're saying moving forward, it can be in neighborhoods even.
Yeah. So obviously the scale of our technology now is at a larger scale, but it is possible for us to downscale the technology to work on a micro level. Right now, most of our technology would be considered like a macro technology, like a whole city, a whole entity, an island, and so really the only thing that's stopping us from downscaling this technology, which is patented and protected by us. And the reason why people haven't heard of it is because it's a nascent technology that's been locked behind IP, right? And so, if someone else claims that they have it, they're probably lying or they don't understand what we do, right? And so really the only thing that's stopping us from getting to that point is money and time, right? So, the team that I'm building, that Jonathan's building, given the right amount of time and on the trajectory we're on, like it's only a matter of time before, we can offer solutions at every level, almost to infinity, right? So
Yeah, we have a system right now that is about 30 pounds a day, right? That's our lab equipment. That's our small scale down version, right? So we could build this for your garage scale right now, but the economics aren't there for it to be commercially viable, right? We can't build a commercially viable piece of equipment because even one for a personal home use, you're probably looking at right now $150,000 at minimum, because you're still talking pressure vessels, right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to make that back. Now, starting on our 10 ton per day systems, the capex per ton comes down tremendously, right? So you're able to yield a tremendous profit. And that's what my father looked at very early on. It's sure, pyrolysis works. You can take waste and turn it into oil. I mean, it's dirty oil, but you can clean the oil up. The main issue is it's about 30% efficient. So you're using 70 units of energy to make 30 units of energy that are dirty units that you now need to clean up. Ours is third-party validated over 90% efficient with no additional cleanup steps needed. And that's the older version. We think with our latest advancements, if you have any listeners with a strong background in science, they're going to call me absolutely crazy for saying this. But based on our calculations, a large enough system processing the right material with the newest additions that we've added will actually be a net energy producing technology, meaning that it's actually creating energy. It would be the only net energy producing technology in the civilian world. So we're on the cusp of doing some pretty insane things in science. We've been dealing with naysayers since the very beginning. We've built this at 250 tons per day. Discover Magazine did a wonderful spread over 4 years called Anything into Oil on my father. But the way people are really going to benefit from this is the fact that the group that's coming together is set out with only one mission in mind, and that is to restore Eden. And that's consciously, collectively, and environmentally. Our systems help with the main part, that is stopping waste and pollutants and chemicals from entering the environment. And a perfect example is we actually break glyphosate, right? Roundup. Rob brought that up earlier. We break that down to the point where it actually becomes a nitrogen phosphorus fertilizer. So glyphosate is carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and hydrogen. 5 normal elements, but the way they're bonded makes them dangerous. We're able to explode those bonds, and you're just left over with the simple elements that it started with. So literally, we turn a pesticide into an organic fertilizer through our system. So the environments are going to benefit, but we've also made a pledge where the company has outright committed 5% of our yearly profits to what we're calling the Eden Initiative. So this is going to be our philanthropic venture. And I'm personally putting in 30% of my personal dividends are going to go to that, as well as most of our founders are also committing 30% of their personal dividends to this initiative, which the number one rule of the initiative is if you own more than 1% of the equity of Eden, you're not allowed to receive a penny in compensation from the initiative. So this is not a slush fund. This is not a tax haven. We are going to be using these systems for collaborations with groups all over the world doing environmental restoration, where we're going to be rebuilding mangroves, donating systems to areas to clean up the mouths of rivers and bring clean water back to these people in India and South America who have just been impoverished, bring systems to the people of Africa, there's 15 million people around the world living in landfill communities. We intend on stopping that. No human being should live in a landfill, period. So the world is going to benefit from that.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, and why this fascinates me so much is you said the words, we're restoring Eden, and the picture that came to my mind, one that hopefully everyone has seen, is these landfills in different countries where we think we're getting rid of our trash, but really it's just going to these, especially, well, I was going to say especially clothes, it's especially everything, right? So
everything.
Give us a visual picture of what that will look like if we put one of your products there.
So on a landfill?
Yeah.
Well, essentially we would be able to, okay, sorry about that.
Okay. Got another guess.
Essentially what we would be able to do is take all the land that's there, right? And I live in Florida. One of the tallest points in Florida is a landfill. right? I mean, we build mountains of trash here in South Florida because there's nowhere else really to put it. And what we can do is essentially just clear that whole land completely, run it through the system. You would remove any contaminants from the soil. You would be able to restore that soil back to a pristine
Wow.
soil that you can put back in the ground. You would make some biochar that you can then use for soil remediation. And you can just essentially dig up the whole landfill and process it through. Now, the issue is with that is a lot of this material is already broken down, so you don't create a significant amount of energy. So there has to be another play in that to make it really economically viable. In the right area, it makes sense because the land is going to be worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars an acre, right? So you have a significant reason to clear that land so you can then sell the land. But if you're just looking at it for remediation, you can definitely probably break even, but everything's already broken down. The carbon has already been released. A lot of the gas has already gone into the atmosphere, right? All the methane gas that they capture from landfills. But you can remediate it, right? You can clean it. You can return things back to nature. So you can restore the area.
Exactly.
You can get rid of landfills. Our goal is stopping new material from going into the landfills first, because we can turn that into a
Yes.
significant amount of energy. A perfect example is we're talking to one of these Caribbean islands right now about putting in a system. Their whole island produces about 3,500 tons of waste a day. If we were to process all of that waste through the system, we would produce more electricity than the whole island needs. So they would be able to offset every single bit of their power usage.
Wow. So then
just by processing their garbage.
This is obviously a win-win. And I know that maybe some of the answer you might give is money, but why are we doing it yet? Like, what's the holdup? How can we help?
Right now, we're looking to put systems out there and sell our units. We have all the data we need, and we can showcase that we've built it large scale before. The slow up for us has been that we are in the process of building our first large scale piece of equipment owned outright by Eden. So that's been one of the holdups. We've got a lot of customers waiting to see that system done. But the biggest holdup really has just been the fact that these are not cheap pieces of equipment.
Sure.
There's a lot of due diligence that goes into acquiring one of these systems, and we're just getting going again. We're a young fledgling company. We've got about 35 people involved right now, and we're really starting to hit our pace. We're in the process of closing our first round here within the next couple of weeks. So really it's just the natural growth projections of a startup. And we've turned down a lot of significant money. We've turned down more money already in the past year than most people could comprehend, because we are not worried about if we're going to get there. We know we're going to get there because we have the group dedicated to do it. And we need to make sure that every dollar that we take comes from people who understand that the mission is to restore Eden. It's not to see how deep we can make our pockets.
That's so good. I love that. So I understand why you're so passionate about it, Jonathan. Your dad was the founder. You've been around this for 30 years. So my question for you, Rob, is when you hear something like this, first question would be, what makes you believe it, or what made you believe it? Because obviously you do. And then how you're laughing. So that must be a really good story.
First, but yeah, continue. Yeah.
What is it like for you to be a part of this mission once you understood it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So my background is actually in rocket science. And it's a point that Jonathan likes to bring up often. I'm saving him the time and pressure this time to bring it up. Yeah. So I've had I'm 30, and I've been very lucky to have a very successful career so far, working alongside large scale technology companies and lots of fledgling startups. And so my pride and joy has always been with startups. I really think that there's a beautiful thing, especially here in America, of this entrepreneurial spirit of being able to take an idea and build it and improve something, people's lives, the community, the world, environment, whatever, with this technology, right? And so Jonathan and I met through a separate kind of parallel. It was a more of a random happenstance, and he was kind of talking me through this. And at first, I called BS because as a scientist, it didn't kind of click for me. And then he sent me some material. I went to see it in person. I read through all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and if not thousands of pages of reports that validate the process. And I said, okay, this makes sense. And once I began to kind of reactivate my chemistry brain, it's something that it's so simple at a baseline molecular level that I think most people will just fly right over it. I actually don't think I don't think it's too difficult to understand. I think it's too basic to understand. By that
Wow.
means that like people often think of these very complex systems as these things that are super difficult to understand, right? Like take rockets, for example.
Hmm.
It's often called like one of the hardest fields in science, right? But in reality, all you're talking about is a controlled explosion with a hole out of one end of the reactor, right?
That's
And
what I was
so
thinking.
the hard part about rockets, actually, the if you ask any rocket scientist, what is the hardest part? It's not the efficiency, it's not the way it looks, it's not how it performs. It's simply the fact that you have a combustion process happening that is hotter than any material on Earth can withstand for
Mhm.
longer than a few seconds. So how do you create this parallel where you have, this super hot combustion that allows it to be hyper efficient and work, and these materials that the materials you want to use for good for flight dynamics and efficiency and cost are not able to withstand that
Mhm.
system in that area, right? And so that's really kind of for the longest time was the central point of difficulty in rockets, and it's been solved through generations and generations of work and science, and
Mhm.
so even then people think it's this super complex thing where like the chip in my smartphone is far more complex and far more sophisticated than anything
Really?
else that we're doing, right? It's like this phone has 3 nanometer transistors and resistors all over a silicon board that's doing billions and billions of operations per second, right? All we're
Mhm.
talking about doing here is just simply breaking down naturally occurring substances using other naturally occurring processes, right? And so for me, my joy and love of it comes from two places. One, Jonathan is an incredible leader, and his father and him have spent so much time in the past generation really, um, creating this technology that I deeply believe will change the earth for better, right? Will change the
Yeah.
humanity for better and all of our lives, right? And then number two is that, I love solving difficult problems. And I think that Jonathan can tell you that I came in and I just kept most of my day to day is I find more problems that are more complicated than originally they wanted it to be, and then go and try to solve them. I think Adam is a good example, right? Where it's like it was kind of an idea like let's make this more efficient, and then I took it to this level where like it should be here, and they're like, yeah, if we can do it, we're like, no, we're gonna do it, so
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, to answer your question in short, right, it's I have a deep love of building
Short.
things with good people. Yeah, I'm not short. But yeah, it's just a love of the craft and love of the people, and it's
Yeah.
been a lot of fun. So
I
Heather, now
love
you see
all
why
of
we
it.
call him Spock.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No,
actually officially my 1 year at the company on Wednesday.
oh,
So yeah, thank
congratulations.
you. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've already created Adam. I'm going to say
Well,
that like
we're
I
in the
know what it
process
is.
of creating Adam. I'm going to say that it's not straightforward. That is not rocket science. That is harder. That is so much harder. So
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I have a feeling that we're going to see you guys on the cover of like Time Week and magazine and all
it'll
these
be
big
it'll be him,
things.
not me. Don't worry.
Well,
You
you
won't
know
see
what?
me.
We're going to
Yeah.
know that there's a team behind him for sure. And
Always.
I got to talk to you. And so don't forget my name and my face, but
I won't.
because this is really fascinating. And I believe, like, you talked about the phone, the red chores thing. Well, that's the kind of stuff that you're helping clean up because that's
Yeah, for
what's
sure.
crazy, being manufactured and, they make you buy more and then it ends up in the landfill. And, I live in Leander, I live in Austin, which is, clean, clean, clean. So I think this is the coolest thing ever. me and the listeners might not understand everything you're doing, but we know the vision, and that's what's so important. And so before we get to our rapid fire questions, what is something that we as an audience should know about Eden, and how can we be a part of it and helping maybe even solve the problem?
Yeah, so I'll quickly hop in and let Jonathan say the thing. If anything I or Jonathan talked about, and this is a shameless plug, interests you and you understand it, then reach out to us, because
Okay.
we're hiring, and at least on my team, like, I want 10x engineers. I want the kind of people that think differently, that solve problems, that grew up breaking things and fixing them. Like, that's the kind of people that we need. So if that sounds like you, if you want to help, then literally come and help.
Amazing.
And I'd be happy to talk to you. So would Jonathan. But Jonathan can fill in the rest of the
That's
stuff. That's
great.
my
I love
shameless
it.
plug.
That's
So
that's a good plug.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Right now, we need people who can really help take us to the next level. We're gonna need some really talented engineers. We're gonna need people who can bring in some business development acumen, some sales acumen, and help really get this company going. We don't think small, right? When we're talking what we believe the valuation of this company can be, we say beyond 12 figures. We don't even believe that is. We think that's reaching low for us. And when you have aspirations like that, you obviously need the best that's out there. But I guess the biggest takeaway from I hope your listeners hearing Rob and I talk is just know that there is hope. That that's one of the big things that we want to let people understand, that there are people out there that truly do believe in a better world, that see an opportunity to make a lot of money, but use it to do what's right, and heal this planet. So our grandchildren and our great grandchildren and every generation after that actually has a healthy world. I think we get too caught up in this, the world is going to end climate change narrative, that we forget that there are real solutions out there. There's too much hysteria that people believe that just because the climate is changing, that we're doomed, when it's not. We're a very resilient species, and there's going to be people out there that, like our group, that are going to do what it takes to make sure that there is a world for the next generation. And I guess the number one thing that we could use is love and support, and sharing of our message, right? Get our social channels out there. And here's my shameless plug, right? Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. We're active in several places. We've got a really great team that are leading up our social media, and they do a wonderful job. They try to comment and get back to everybody that they can. A lot of the stuff isn't always in the easiest questions to answer, but Rob and I try to chime in where we can to help with the technology side. But really just sharing us with the world. Share us with your friends, your family, your science teachers. Have them tell their students about it. Follow us. And if you're, as Rob said, if you're interested in being a part of what we're doing, if you think that you might want a piece of equipment, just reach out to us. You can get Rob and I always monitor our main info at edenenergy.co channel. So it's just info at edenenergy.co, not .com, unfortunately, .co. And they can just send any questions or anything they want there, and ask whatever they got to do, and we'll get back to them when we can.
Well, y'all are truly making an impact on the world for sure. And so, one really just final thoughts, and then we got to get to the rapid fire questions. But I could talk about this all day, honestly, because it's the coolest thing. But where do you see you personally, even, and the company in 3 to 5 years?
Spock, you want to take that one? I'll let you go first. I mean, I'm going to say it too.
Well, at the end of the day, I think that, 3 to 5 years from now, it's not, I hope, it's, I know that this will be a serious player in not just the global energy space, but the global technology space. And there are a lot of other technologies and verticals and ideas that we deeply want to dive into, that we have, whether interested people or preliminary patents or different things that really just require uh, a Bell Labs, so to speak. So I've always been inspired by Bell Labs, which, to the people that weren't familiar, was, the original campus in New Jersey, where, a lot of the significant breakthroughs in modern technological relevance happened. And you can just Google Bell Labs, you can see that there was tens of thousands of patents, all of which most people have heard of, believe it or not, that have significantly changed the entire trajectory of history. And so we believe that, we're kind of in this second era of innovation, and most innovation comes from manufacturing and rethinking the technologies that we've been using for, 100+ years. I mean, the car is over 100 years old, so is the plane, and so how do we start rethinking these things for the future? I have aspirations for more space use. I think that there is a lot of room in the space industry to grow, and I think that there is room for a couple SpaceXs, so to speak. So that's definitely something that's on my short radar. But yeah, that's it.
That's it. That's on my short list. Just
Yeah,
some space stuff. I love
just
it.
a little bit. Yeah,
just small dreams.
never.
It's fantastic.
Just to build on what he said, yeah, and I'll use the 5-year goalpost as a place where we're headed. But I firmly believe within the next 5 years, we'll be putting out hundreds, if not thousands, of these systems all over the world, across every continent. We're already in conversations with a couple of countries in Africa, a couple in Asia. We're talking with a couple South American groups. So within the next 5 years, we have major aspirations of growing to a international company, employing tens of thousands worldwide. And one of the big things that we are going to be doing, no matter what area we're in or where we are, is pay a prevailing wage. No employee working for a company should ever have to worry about having a second job. If you're doing a good job and working in a real industry, you should be able to feed your family. So one of the things that we're really going to set out is showing that you don't need to be a greedy pig to be able to make money and make a difference. And that's where we see ourselves in the next 5 years, is setting a global tone about how a corporation can take care of its people while taking care of the planet.
Wow.
Amen.
I love that. Well, I have a feeling you are going to be restoring Eden really soon. And I'm excited to watch and to cheer you guys on. So, all right. You decide who to take each question. But here is the first question. What is the key to success for you?
All right. Well, I'm going to take that one, Rob. The key to success is never giving up. If you look at the stories of all the greatest entrepreneurs of our day, a lot of them have backgrounds that before they broke into where they were living in their car. They were scrounging by. They were living on their friend's couch, sleeping in this guy's garage, wherever it may be, that these entrepreneurs were, but they had a dream and they were willing to sacrifice everything to pursue that dream. And the story will get told about what our team has sacrificed over the last year. I mean, our team has been battling. Raising capital during a depression and a presidential election year was never a fun thing, but thankfully that's over and things are looking great for us. Very exciting times ahead, but the team has battled. I personally, 27 years and been battling for this technology. I'm only 35, so since I was a kid. And if I gave up at any point in that journey, none of us are here. So it's, if you truly believe in what you're doing, if you believe in the path that you're on, the only person who could tell you otherwise is you. If I listened to all the people in my life who told me to quit, I wouldn't be here.
Well, we're glad you didn't. That's for sure. All right. What would you say is the key to success for others? And it could be the same, but what would you tell people?
I'll take that one. I think, as you said, the key word is last year has been a lot for all of us. And I think that, the key to success for others, there's many ways that you could take this question, but for me, I'm going to make it about grace. I just think that giving people the space and the belief to do things themselves, I think that, I think people don't realize like how detrimental an even neutral or negative comment can be to someone's future success. And I'm not saying like you need to coddle them or pay attention to any, super insane woke stuff going on. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about like, it's amazing what a positive push even the smallest amount can do to someone. And it's amazing what the smallest negative push can also hold someone back, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm very thankful that I had two parents that were, very supportive of me. And whenever I would have a crazy idea or want to go down some esoteric path, they would push me to give it a try, but also keep in mind that reality exists, and I
Yeah.
think that it really starts with, mentors and teachers and motivators and parents and friends and family, right? Just keeping that strong community around you, because, you look at why most tech startups are successful in the US and why most of them are based in the Bay Area. It's because there's this insane community of people that
Mm.
have all fought at some point in time through that.
Mm.
And they're just pulling up the next generation, literally, sweat, blood, and tears. And that's kind of how it works, yeah.
I
So
love that. I love that. I love that giving grace. I think that's true, especially when our audience, our audience that's listening are a lot of entrepreneurs, and we need to give ourselves some grace.
absolutely.
All right, book
Absolutely.
or podcast. What are you reading or listening to these days?
Wait, hold on. I want to take this one just because the book I'm reading right now is different. But I had it recommended to me by 5 people in a month, which usually is
Yep.
a good single of that. So it's a book called Blitzed, and it's about drug use in the Third Reich during World War II. And it's just fascinating. I mean, I'm a big history buff, and
Mm-hmm.
I love things that kind of fall back into reality. But it's all about how the Nazis essentially invented heroin and meth and refined cocaine to what it is today, which most people don't know, and about how most of the success. I use success in air quotes. I'll just say
Yeah,
it for the record, like I do not support Nazis
sure.
or Nazism or anything like that. It's just a
Right.
fascinating story in his. Look at Jonathan's already
History.
like pounding his face. But
We're gonna edit this properly.
no, it's fine. And you can do it if you don't want to. But like at the end of the day, it's just fascinating to understand how these drugs that are so detrimental to modern society and the modern world and where they came from, and how they were used. And I think it's just a fascinating
Mm.
story. And I've read a lot of books around drugs and addiction and how they impact the human mind and body. And it's just a fascinating path. And the second book is called it's called When Breath Becomes Air. Yes. And it's just an interesting book on, I guess, humanity. And it's told through this, I guess he's a scientist or a doctor. I'm not really sure who he is, but it's one of those books where you get through a couple pages and you have to stop reading and like think for a long time because
Mhm.
someone just very eloquently exemplified or presented you with an idea of a couple things you've been thinking about for a long time, and you're just like, oh, that's what I was thinking about, and it's a
Wow.
lot of that, and it's quick and it's nice. So
I love it.
there's one on each side. So
It's great. Okay, Jonathan, I want to ask you this question. It's our last rapid fire, and it's a fun one. So, if you had a little bit of magic dust and you could sprinkle it anywhere in your company, where would you sprinkle it?
On the bank account.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an easy one. No, I mean, at the end of the day, we've been hearing since I was a kid, or I've been hearing since I was a kid, and my father started making his claims that we can do what we do, right? And
Mhm.
people, I saw as an early kid, people telling my father that he can't, and look, I believed in my dad from day one. When I started leading the R&D, and I was the one doing all these experiments with my own hands, doing all the measurements, measuring the energy input, measuring the outputs, getting everything sent out. I mean, I did it all. Then you see that
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that try to tear you down because either they couldn't do it or they believe it's not true. So I guess if I had some magic fairy dust, I would sprinkle it into the ether of the world to allow people to understand that this is a reality, that
yeah.
this isn't a head fake. This isn't a get rich quick scheme. I mean, if it is, me and my dad are the worst at it on the planet because it's 27 years of brawling.
Yeah.
So it's this is a commitment to a technology that I know can make a significant difference in this world. I saw a clip the other day. My inspiration and idol growing up was Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. It's the only time I've ever cried when a celebrity died.
Oh,
I
I
was
know.
inconsolable for a week. I had his
Oh,
posters on my wall. I mean, that was my idol.
oh.
I wanted to meet him more than anything. And I saw a video of him the other week talking about how he's going to take money from everybody so we can buy more land and save more animals.
Mhm.
And that's really what this is about at the end of the day. We were blessed to be handed this technology by a higher power, and now we're in control of it. We have it, and we need to make sure the world gets to use it, because there's a big job ahead. And my only mission in this life is to make sure that the world I leave behind was exponentially better than the world I came into.
I love that so much. This is awesome. I really think everybody needs to know about you guys, and hopefully you get on more shows and more national television and get the word out, because you really are going to change the world. And I think it's amazing. So I
Thank
don't
you,
know
Heather.
if we maybe already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. What is most inspiring to you today?
The grit that the team that we've put together has. Just seeing everybody's resolve, how even with all the trials and tribulations that we've been through, all the difficulties, all the empty promises from people who claim they wanted to help and then fizzled out. Just the resolve that the team that we've put together has, where everybody has each other's backs. I mean, I get text messages from my team at midnight on Saturday, and they're of documents that these guys are working on,
Mm.
right? My partner Joe and I, he's one of the founders here as well. Him and I have said it to each other. Rob has said it. Everyone has really said it. We put in 90 hours a week, but we don't work at all.
More.
But we don't work. This is not work. Nobody wakes up on a Saturday morning excited they get to sit in an engineering meeting for 3 hours. We do.
Yeah. Well, that's when you know that you're doing the very work that you were born to do.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, I could talk about this for hours, and I'm just excited to see where this all goes. Thank you just for being on the show and sharing your passion about Eden, and how,
Thanks for having us.
yeah, and just how you guys are really changing the world. I'm glad that we got to hear a sneak peek and get in on your story. So just want to encourage everyone that's watching to save this show and come back and watch it, because I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of Rob and Jonathan in the future. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you get a notification every time a new conversation drops, just like this one. Thanks to everyone for joining us today, but a special thanks to Rob and Jonathan for joining me. It was great. Thanks for being on the show. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.